Joining me today on NYSE Floor Talk is Dan Brouillette. He is the president and CEO at Edison Electric Institute. Dan, it is wonderful to have you here. Thanks for joining me on Floor Talk.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Dan, let's start off by talking about EEI. Tell me about EEI and its mission.
Sure. Well, EEI is roughly 91 years old, almost 91 years old. Fantastic organization. We have been part and parcel to the utility industry, to the power industry for a very long time. And we serve as a public policy institute. We help them with development of public policy, execution of public policy. We also do a lot of other things, however. We do pull together the investment community quite often because it is here in New York City and other parts around the world that we find the people who provide the capital for us to develop the infrastructure that we need to make sure the lights stay on and the heat stays on and the AC stays on all across the country. So wonderful organization. We have roughly 90 international members. We represent all of the investor-owned utilities here in the United States. We serve approximately 250 million customers each and every day.
Dan, tell me, what role do America's electric companies play in contributing to the economy and accelerating the transition to clean energy?
Well, the companies that belong to EEI are really at the tip of the spear of this energy transition. So they're providing clean electricity, which is what consumers have wanted, and they're also providing reliable and resilient electricity, which is also what they want. So if we think about our lives today, we've become more and more dependent upon electricity for everything that we do. And as a result, our companies are stepping up to the plate to make sure that it's there when you need it, when you want it. And it's an important role that we play. It's also important to remember that roughly 5% of the nation's GDP is coming from the energy industry, from the power industry itself. But importantly, it's the first 5%. As I said earlier, everything that we do today in our lives depends in some way, shape, or form on the provision of electricity. So it's the first 5% of everything that we do in the economy. Very proud to be a part of that.
Now, are electric companies prioritizing customer affordability as they work to build new clean energy resources? And tell me, what kind of energy resources are companies focusing on today?
Well, I think, yes, they are. Affordability is something that we take very, very seriously. And it's the reason that the regulated industry or the regulated model for this industry is so critically important. We're heavily regulated, as you might imagine. We're a public service and a public good, if you think about it in terms of economics or public theory or public economics theory. And because of that, the consumer regulators in each one of the states ensure that the energy that we provide is affordable for all of the consumers in that service territory. So it's something we take seriously as an industry. It's something that regulators take very seriously as well. And as we think about the changing world, it's important for us to also balance our generation sources. So when we become too dependent on one generation source, call it natural gas or call it nuclear power or something else, when we see market volatility in those areas, they're balanced out by the provision of or the new generation sources that we're bringing online, things like wind and solar. And we balance that equation very, very effectively, working right alongside our regulators.
Now, we know that America's electric companies are focused on making the energy grid stronger, smarter, and more secure. Now tell me, what kind of investment has been made to achieve these goals?
Enormous investments. I would say last year alone, probably more than $160 billion was made by this industry. Roughly $1 trillion over the last decade alone to build out America's generation sources, to build out the transmission resources that we need, and of course the distribution resources, which goes right to your home. But this industry, again, has been at the tip of the spear of that development. And as we see the transition continuing, as we see the shift, from heavier hydrocarbon fuels like coal or perhaps, fuel oil to renewable power, more and more of that infrastructure is going to be needed. And this industry stands ready to help America and the rest of the world accomplish it.
All right, finally, Dan, tell me, how critical are supportive public policies and a regulatory environment to the success of electric companies?
Absolutely essential. As you can imagine with any business, regulatory certainty really does matter. Understanding the amount of capital investment that's being made by this industry, it's important that these CEOs, these companies, consumers generally know that these investments are going to be utilized over a long period of time. So providing a stable regulatory field in which for that to occur is critically important. Congress has done a great job with things like the investment or the Inflation Reduction Act, as well as the infrastructure law. That we're partnering with our federal agencies as well as many of our state agencies to ensure that not only the investment goes where Congress and the American people want it to go, but that the regulatory environment that accompanies that investment is stable and secure as well.
All right, well, Dan, wonderful to talk with you. Thanks for joining me on Floor Talk today.
Thanks for having me.